From Guitar Business Radio, this is GBR Focus, the podcast about companies, products, services, and plenty of details. But sorry, no idle chatter. And as we move into uncharted waters in the business of guitar, keep your chin up and your nose to the grindstone. Simultaneously, of course. I'm Jeffrey D. Brown, and I'm here for the duration. So let's get to it. Welcome to this episode of GBR Focus, brought to you by Guitar Business Radio and Fret Zealot. And I want to remind all of you that you can subscribe to GBR Focus on your favorite podcast platform, and you can get on our mailing list, listen to shows, and get more information on each episode at gbrfocus.com. Now today, our focus is on a unique new learning tool for guitar. It's called Fret Zealot, and essentially it's a state-of-the-art LED addition to your guitar. It fits just above the frets and shows you exactly where to put your fingers for chords, scales, songs, and a lot more. And it installs on most guitars, has a great mobile app that powers all the functionality of this really amazing tool. And you know, it was 5 years in the making, and it was boosted by a hugely successful crowdfunding campaign to help bring the product to market. And as a result, Fret Zealot is now available at major retailers, off and online, and continues on a development path that really suggests a pretty bright future for the company. So to tell us about the history and development of Fret Zealot and the many features and benefits that it offers, we're happy to welcome the company's founder and CEO, Sean Misavage, who joins us right here and right now. Hey, Sean, thanks so much for taking the time to join us on GBR Focus today. How are you?
Doing well. Very happy to be here.
That's great. That's great. Well, before we get into talking about what Fret Zealot is doing right now, what I'd like you to do and share with our listeners, if you would, some of the important history of the company and how you got to where you are today. And then a follow-on to that, I want to hear something about your experience with crowdfunding it, because I know our listeners are going to be really interested in hearing about that. So the floor is yours, my friend.
Sure. So the company behind Fret Zealot is actually called EdgeTech Labs. And when we got into this business, we realized that to create something as high-tech as Fret Zealot really is, we needed to have a very fundamental understanding of software and hardware and how they interact together. So I created EdgeTech Labs as kind of what's called a full stack development company, meaning we take an idea from its formulation through its development, through its release, and then through its growth. And there's a lot of things involved with that. And we actually had the idea for Fret Zealot in, I believe, 2012. I know it was about 5 years before we could finally release it. And funny enough, we were actually just waiting on the price of the paper-thin LEDs that we use.
Oh,
and
wow, that makes sense.
Yeah, they were about $1 each, and considering we use 90 of them, that was a pretty prohibitive price factor in the product, and it would make it too expensive.
That brings you way up there, yeah.
So in 2017, the prices for those LEDs dropped by like 3/4, by like 75%. And so we were super excited, knew we could make it, figured everything out. But of course, we were starting from literally point zero. We had no market, we had no following. We didn't know when we were going to launch it, but we knew we needed to launch it fast. So this was kind of at the tail end of what I call the golden age of crowdfunding. That's a bit of another topic in terms of why I think that golden age is over. But in 2017, it was a good time for us to launch on a crowdfunding platform. So we actually created a video, did a photo shoot, got all the good pictures of Fret Zealot, and launched it on Kickstarter in, I believe it was January of 2017. Yeah, it was actually at the start of the year.
A couple of years ago then, right?
Yeah. So actually that price drop, I think, occurred in 2016 in November or December. So Fret Zealot is an LED accessory for guitars. It's paper thin, covers the first 14 frets plus an LED strip to represent open strings, and it can fit on any full-size guitar. And this is a pretty radical idea in the music industry in terms of education, in terms of functionality. Certainly people had never seen anything like this before, and we needed to test the market, and crowdfunding was the best way to do that. So we launched in January, and 30 days later, we had 1,500 pre-orders for the product.
Wow. Boy, that's, and you probably made your goal fairly easily then, right?
Yeah, our goal was actually about $40,000. That was our simple break-even point, and we hit about $250,000 on Kickstarter.
And how long did that take? Within 30 days? Wow.
30 days.
So that's like, eightfold or something like that, 6 or 7-fold of what you were looking for. That's tremendous. And that should have been quite exciting and also a good signal of what might be coming down the road.
Exactly. And something that most people don't think about is not only is it great that we got the money to actually go out and make it, but the feedback from crowdfunding was incredible. I mean, we had every sort of feature request you can imagine. That's where I first learned about Ibanez's 7-string bass, because people were just asking, are you going to make one for this guitar, for this guitar, this guitar? And it was just fascinating. And we actually recorded all those requests and then have kind of directed our marketing and product releases accordingly based on kind of demand.
Yeah, wow. Boy, that's amazing. And I'm probably not everybody realizes what a treasure trove of information and data that you can get out of that.
Yeah, it's a valuable resource. And to this day, we can still send out surveys to those backers and get an incredible response rate. So,
and that's a great story in its own right. Let's keep the momentum going here. Fret Zealot is available now, and you're building your market. It must be a pretty exciting time for you. So let's talk a little bit about the product in terms of what problems it solves, what benefits it offers.
Yeah, so what this really comes down to is everybody in the music retail industry knows that there's a problem with customer retention. And especially in the education space, I know Fender did a couple studies on this, and they found that as many as 90% of new players were giving up on guitar within just like the first few weeks. And so we really looked at why people were giving up and the true barriers to entry that they had, because there is incredible instructional content available now. I mean, YouTube is just a wealth of all sorts of beginner information.
Boy, that's for sure.
Yeah. So we had to really do some thought into like, what is going on here? What is the disconnect? And it took, actually that crowdfunding campaign was useful, but we actually handed first-time players guitars and watched what they would do, even with our product. But without the product, we saw they were getting confused, even when a video was right in front of them, about which side of the fret to put their fingers. They were just lacking the most fundamental knowledge about learning guitar. And when we turned our product on, we found that the LED guidance, and it is multicolor, so it can be color-coded by fingers, but the concept is you are essentially covering up an LED with your finger, and that's exactly where your finger is supposed to go.
Wow, that's great. That's great.
Yeah, and it took away a huge barrier to entry, and especially with being able to link it to video lessons when an instructor is talking about how hard to press, or they're maybe giving an example of how a string can be accidentally muted, we're lighting up the correct finger location so that the user is not paying attention to where their fingers are. They're actually paying attention to the instructor, which is the goal of all instructors.
Yeah, that's right. So the results of your testing, your sort of real-time, real-person testing showed what?
Yeah, so this is interesting. Since we link to an app and over Bluetooth, we can actually track all of our app analytics. And right now we're seeing about a 40, I think the actual number is 38% retention over a 30-day period. And this isn't even including people who, this is including people who haven't actually bought Fret Zealot. This is just general app analytics. But 38% of the people who download and install our app are continuing to use it after 30 days. And that is absolutely beating the industry average, where it's 10% or 15%. So we're seeing that we're already taking a double-digit chunk out of that drop-off rate for new players. And that's very exciting to us and inspiring. And hopefully we continue to increase retention and find ways to keep new players playing.
So I can see how, what kind of problems it solves. And in terms of, the real benefit for the user, give us a little idea of what they can expect or what the average person would expect to get out of this.
So the biggest kind of value proposition is that Fret Zealot is a one-time purchase. So it currently retails for about $200, and a person can buy the product. They put it on their own guitar, whatever guitar they have lying around. I can't tell you how many people I talk to who say, oh yeah, I have a guitar in my closet, and they can't remember the last time it came out of the closet. And then our goal is to let people learn at their own pace on their own time. And many people have tried doing lessons where they physically go somewhere and something comes up. Maybe it's just a life event of any kind, and they kind of fall off the wagon. They don't go back, and then it's hard to restart. And then they might even be embarrassed to restart because they've lost what they learned. But with Fret Zealot, they can link back up to their phone and immediately jump into right where they were. And the visual cues are tremendously powerful from an educational standpoint, and actually having their brain connect to where they were last learning, and then the muscle memory takes over.
Yeah, so it's always seemed to me that when people have some success or can see or feel results, they're making progress, even if it's incremental, small increments, that's usually a good motivator for them to continue on. And this seems like it would serve that purpose fairly well.
Exactly. And that's our goal with that.
So Fret Zealot is available, in a number of formats, seems to have a lot of expansion capability. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. So there are two versions available right now. One that is the best fit for 24 and 3/4 inch scale length guitars. That would be most of your Gibsons and your Epiphones. And then one that's a best fit for 25.5 inch scale length guitars. And that's like Fender, right, and most acoustics. So between those two scale lengths, we cover about 99% of the full size guitar scale length range. Like the smaller one can fit slightly larger, slightly smaller, and the same for the larger one. Coming up, we're probably going to launch a starter version of Fret Zealot this year, maybe with just 5 frets plus open. And then in the summer, our goal is to release a ukulele version, actually 2 different ukulele versions, just to account for the 4 or 5 common sizes of ukuleles.
Yeah, that's a big market. I would think that would be a great place to go. And you have a lot of people in that market who are really picking it up for the first time and really need the basics. And Fret Zealot certainly covers that and more.
Exactly. It's interesting that while ukuleles are a lot less expensive, the value proposition is still there for Fret Zealot because somebody still needs lessons, and the lessons are the same cost regardless of ukulele or guitar.
Just to give our listeners a sense of who your customer is, who do you want to be talking to?
In general, this would be best for beginners, but there's also a lot of content that we're adding in now for more advanced players. We've had a shocking, and I'll be the first to say that it is surprising, how many people have reached out to us who are professional players, but they just only play in a few keys. And they're interested in getting our product to just pop on a scale in a different key and play around and see what kind of music they can come up with, use it as inspiration for their own musical career. And that's something I'm really excited about as well.
And you've told me that Fret Zealot, you've been working at developing other kinds of educational material that interfaces with the product. So you have a lot of ways to grow with this thing.
Correct. We offer a what's called an SDK. It's a public piece of code that any other app can grab and put into their app and then display directly on our product, which is pretty cool.
Wow.
And then we're about to start playing with some ideas of getting some other courses available in the app. And that would be kind of an in-app purchase that's separate because it's somebody else's content and they need to make money from it.
Sure. And you want that sort of thing. And that's a value for value proposition. And we're of course really big on that. Let's talk a little bit about how you're supporting your customers, both from retailers to end users. That's a real important topic.
Yeah, and this is huge. So from day one, customer service has been a major aspect of our company, and it holds true that if somebody reaches out, we will respond with them, and we will figure out how we can best help them. And this holds true with many different areas. If they're having any kind of issue, we'll figure out what's going on, and our team is trained, and this has been refined over years now about how we can figure out what's going on. It is a high-tech product, and to install it, one does have to watch the installation video. And so it's been challenging figuring out how we can best explain to our users that, like, really watch the video, and this will really help you with this. But the most important aspect is being there when there are questions. And it's shocking how many customers reach out to us and they say, oh, I wasn't actually expecting a response. And yeah, it's well,
that's the good way of sort of undercommitting and over delivering, or at least over delivering on what you've said. So that's a very good way to go.
Exactly. My goal with this is to build a community. And so at the end of every resolution, we usually say, well, feel free to reach out in the future if you have any feature or song requests. And most of our song database right now is based upon request. So people reach out, we find the music, we get it into the app, and then they're ecstatic when we email them and say, hey, it's there, check it out.
Now, what do you sort of project the library to look like over the next year?
Well, there's currently 45,000 songs available, which is pretty extensive.
I would say so.
But, yeah, they are electronic tones, so like MIDI files, essentially avoiding the copyright issue. But we are in discussion with a lot of record companies right now, and our goal is to actually offer properly licensed master tracks in the next few months available for customers. And that'll be exciting because in combination with that, we'll also professionally vet some of the tablature. All our tablature right now is essentially crowdsourced. It's publicly submitted from our users. And we'd like to be able to find some of the best tracks that actually match up with the music and then offer that as a verified track.
But you've really got the right model in this, and the customer involvement, i.e. crowdsourcing and that sort of thing, is really the thing. I mean, you just get a tremendous amount of content that way. And I think you're right. There needs to be some way to vet the material. But it sounds to me like you're just on top of almost all of this stuff and have a good game plan and are off to a great start. It's an impressive product. It's unique in so many ways. And look, you're on the lookout for new and emerging markets. And a great example of that, obviously, is ukulele. So one of the most important aspects of our conversation certainly has to be, how do folks acquire Fret Zealot for themselves?
Of course. So the best way would be to head over to fretzealot.com, and then there's actually a store locator at the top menu that you can click on and find the nearest retail location to you.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And is it available online from any resources at all at this particular time?
It is. You can get it online. I think our biggest online sources right now are Guitar Center, Music and Arts, Musician's Friend, Fry's Electronics, actually, Sure. And, of course, Amazon.
Well, that's a better way to go with Fry's, because if you've ever been in a Fry's store, it's quite an experience. Not making a judgment in the negative there, but it is an experience for some people, so that's always Good to know. Well, we've been able to get a lot of really good information about Fret Zealot today, Sean, and I hope that this will stimulate some conversation out there among our listeners. And if they have questions or comments, then they can head over to fretzealot.com and find out more about the product. So thanks so much for taking the time to come on the show with us today, and we'll look forward to seeing the growth and prosperity of Fret Zealot down the road.
Thank you so much. This has been great.
Awesome. So what did you think of the interview with Sean Misavage? We always want to hear from you, and you can do that easily through the official episode page on our website at gbrfocus.com. Or you can reach us on Facebook and Twitter at Guitar Business, or email us directly at contact@guitarbusinessradio.com. And of course, if none of that works for you, you can always call us on our GBR hotline at 888-777-2404. You can do that right now if you like. Operators are mingling amongst themselves, waiting for your call. So I hope you got some value from our interview with Sean. These guys are serious about the technology. They're working hard to build out even more functionality for Fret Zealot while adding benefits for an expanding market. And that's what it's all about, folks. Benefits. What's in it for you? And in the end, you have to be able to articulate the benefits in an easily understood way in fairly short order if you're going to capture a sale. And I think that because Fret Zealot has such a clear and engaging visual component to it, it makes it a lot easier for prospective buyers to see the potential value for them very quickly. I also think their website does a great job of conveying the message, which of course is the second C in what we call the 3 C's at Guitar PR. The first C, capture the attention. Well, that happens in large part by the imagery that is presented on many different platforms. So if you get a chance, take a look at fretzealot.com and see what I mean. Whether or not the product is right for you is for you to determine. But in any case, it's quite likely that you know someone who could benefit from this innovative product. Any ukulele players out there? Sounds like that's next. So that about wraps up this episode of GBR Focus. Stay tuned and stay in touch at gbrfocus.com. And don't forget to keep an eye on guitarbusinessradio.com every Wednesday, where we bring you in-depth, long-form interviews with some of the most interesting and well-respected individuals with great stories to tell about their experience in the business of guitar. So as always, stay positive. Stay focused on the destination, but always keep all the options open on how you're going to get there. Well, thanks for listening, and I'll see you again on the next episode of GBR Focus.